Okay, now we're live. So, welcome.
Yay.
So,
Hi.
joining us, and this is one of my favorite friends, Claudia. And I was noticing Fimbres is on this call, but I also call you Claudia Guardado. So, what do you prefer these days?
I'm Guardado.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's my new last name.
Yeah, and wow, I was just having fun thinking about how we met. And I don't know if you noticed, I found myself calling you one of my spiritual and business mentors.
I
And
can see that.
really, I'm remembering, I've been wanting to do one of these video interviews with you for so long. So I'm so glad that I finally got you here. And especially for this series, because I feel like when I think about when we met at that retreat that our friend Kim Summers Egglesey put on, right? I'm thinking that was like 4 years ago, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been quite some time at this point. Yeah.
But I have strong memory of meeting you that weekend and falling in love with you that weekend, right? As one of my new favorite friends. But I just remember that you were coming from a hard space and having gone through some challenges with coming out of a marriage and dealing with things with, I think your dad was in the hospital at the time, and I was there, struggling with things in my marriage. And I just remember that you were just this amazing source of faith and connection and sense of spirituality that just felt so strong and helpful, and it just touched me so much meeting you, someone who's like coming out of such hard moments, right? In some ways, with what you've been recently going through. So just to have met you at that time, that you were already in that space of just being such a, I would say, like a spiritual leader because of your faith and connection and the way you bring that into your everyday life. And yeah, and then since then, getting to know you even better, and just I continue to love that about you, that I just really respect, and kind of in awe of your sense of connection, and then how you're just always someone at work in the world helping people, in addition to having these amazing businesses that you had a business coming into this year, and then you've created a new business even within this year, and you're coaching other people with their businesses. So I'm just so thankful to have you here, because I feel like you are someone who we want to listen to about coming through hard times, and how do we triumph through that, and how do we really stay focused on helping others through challenging times. So thank you. So that's some of my introduction.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for having me on first and foremost. And that introduction was, wow, thank you. That was something. But you're right. It was about 5 years ago, I think now, because I'm thinking 2015 was 5 years ago. And, you talk about traumatic events in your life. We listen to a lot of these things, but to actually go through it was something that I was completely unfamiliar with. And I'm very honest in sharing about it. I think that's cathartic, and it helps me, but it also helps others understand. I went through a journey where I was going through a really tough divorce. And, when you go through a divorce, you lose a family, you lose your home, so you talk about all this loss that we go through in life. And so I was going through all of these things. And then loss of a corporate job. I mean, I have been doing work for 15 years of my life at that point. And to all of a sudden, and anybody who knows me knows that I am a working woman, and when I say corporate job, I have a team of so many, and you're sitting on a corporate ladder, and all of that falling from under my feet. I got very ill. I had a huge lump develop right on my chest, and I was scared out of my mind, because at that time my father was he had congested heart failure, and he didn't have much time to live. So all of those events, I'm going through it. I need to be a pillar for my mother, my brothers, at the time. You go through these events. What do you do for your own self-care? What is it that you're going to do for your own mental health? Well, guess what? Here's what I've learned. If you don't take care of yourself, it will start to manifest within your body.
Ooh.
And this was probably the most profound thing that I found during that point in my life. When I tell you I had this bump on my chest. When I went to the doctor, I also lost my voice and I couldn't speak. So
Right.
it was
Too,
so
right?
interesting.
Yeah.
But, I share this because if anybody's going through this, I want you to know that there is help and that you're not alone. So here I am, I go to the doctor and I'm speaking to him. He's doing all these tests and he says to me, he says, I need to see you in my office, which is not the exam room. So he takes me into his office and they had done whatever, I don't know, whatever scan. And he goes, you don't have anything wrong with you. And I go, what? And he goes, there's nothing wrong with you. And then he says, I'm like, I can't even speak. My voice is shaking. I used to sing and I couldn't do any of that. I lost all sense of myself. And he said, what is it that you're not saying? And I looked at him and he says, before I move on, I am a Western medicine doctor, but I'm also a holistic doctor. And he says, I believe that all the symptoms you have are the stress that you have carried in your life. And your mental health, my dear, is not where it needs to be. And, when you think of mental health, I think it has a stigma of, oh my gosh, you're crazy, you're not stable, and it really isn't that. It's kind of like when you're worried, when you're feeling fatigued, all of these things are part of your mental stability. And I think people don't really mount all that up to really realizing that that is what kind of pushes you through. So here I am, I'm going through this whole thing. And when he said, what is it that you're not saying? It just like my whole life flashed before my eyes. And I'm thinking in my head, I wanted to say so much to my corporate job. I wanted to say so much to my relationship. But the way that we are raised, especially growing up as a Catholic, upbringing where you don't talk back, you don't, you're that good girl, it's that whole thing. But, in the reality is being a good girl is saying your truth.
Ah.
Being honest, being true is not a bad thing, but systematically, I mean, we're raised to believe these things. So, I really went through a whole lot of change. I changed my tribe, and I call it my tribe because that is when I met you, LJ.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and those are the people that really fed me the energy that I needed to get out. There is no shame in therapy. There is no shame. I had a beautiful therapist who helped me through, um, all those blocks of past, and
Mm.
I'll even bring it forward when we're, I go through this whole thing, and I'm really, really, making strides to get out there, do things, and change my life. I decided I was going to, formulate this company, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I went for it anyway. Guess what? My mental stability had changed. I decided I was going to sing again. I did a concert. I invited all my friends. I didn't care. Guess what? My mental stability changed. All of the things are derived from how we process and what we think.
Mm.
And within that, I come back to 2020 when we started the year off, and we have this. I feel like events started to happen right after Kobe had passed, Kobe Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like, oh my gosh, there were these terrible fires in Australia, my company's doing well. We're still, thriving. At that time, I had just launched in August of 2019. And so here we are doing all these things. Come March, boom. I mean, the rug just got pulled out from all of us, right? And we didn't know exactly what was going to happen. But, I talk about triggers. And when that happened, when we went through that moment, initially I was like, okay, we're going to get through this. We've been through things. We're going to get through this. And it'll pass in about 2 weeks and we'll be back in action. I mean, do you remember thinking those things? So I'm processing all of this stuff and I'm going, okay, so don't worry about that job. Don't worry about your company, Claudia, because everything's going to be okay. Weeks pass by. We are not allowed to produce. We are not allowed. I'm waiting to produce my summer line at the time. And within this time, my father had already passed. I didn't share that, but, I had gone through all of that. All of these things had happened, right? And so here I am, beautiful thing. I'm moving on. My life is good. And boom, we have COVID. So now I realize, oh my gosh. And when I talk about triggers, remember, I had just gone through 5 years of loss. You know what I mean? With all that loss. And now I'm thinking the one thing that saved me through this process was my company. Mm. And here it is. And I'm about to lose my company. And I went through a period where I couldn't even get out of bed. I was shell shocked. And come to think about it in hindsight, it was the triggers. Mm. I was triggered by events that happened to me 5 years ago. Mm. And of loss. And I was afraid. And, hindsight, thinking about it now, I was afraid of losing my mother. Mm. I went through this whole period because we didn't know too much about what was happening with COVID. I was terrified. Yeah. And I really had to go in again and to pull myself out because I couldn't get out of bed. Mm-hmm. And I went back in and I did a lot of prayer. I really feel that when we go through these things, this was a major event that connected us all, that made the famous normalized. You know what I mean? That put us all in this plateau that we are of the same blood. We all have a heart. We are all emotional creatures, and none of us are moved away from this issue that we have. We are all the same. And when you put it all together like that, it really kind of it made me think. And, you talked about spirituality. And for me, it was a moment of, if this doesn't wake us up, I don't know what will. And we need to be kinder. And, we talk about the answers to what's happening in the world, and it's love and it's kindness, and it is reaching out to your neighbor. It's the little things in life that really make us who we are. And I'm going through this moment and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm about to lose everything again. And I said, no, Claudia, it's not about you. And you need to look big. You need to look at the bigger picture. You need to dig deeper. And that's when I started noticing that the nurses were they were in trauma because they couldn't help, and their job is to help. Can you imagine that if your job is to help and you're just watching people die left and right and people just getting sick and not knowing what to do because this is a new thing that just happened. And in my mind, I thought, you know what? We're just going to change directions here. And I realized that my company could help all these nurses. And so I went out on a quest, and many don't know what my company is, or you do know, but it's a sock company. Well, one of the biggest things that nurses need are socks because they're on their feet 10, 12, 16 hours a day sometimes. So I went to the ERs and I delivered thousands of socks to nurses, and the outpour of that was amazing because I was able to give. But do you ever hear the old saying, when you give, something comes to you?
Right. Yeah.
And that's not really an old saying, that's actually a really real saying.
Yeah.
When I gave from my heart and I just didn't question the situation, and I moved forward that way, and it was part of my community. How are you not? I don't know how to not give back.
Mm.
Um, I had an outpour of orders coming in. So then from every order, I would give so many socks to the nurses. And it was an outpour because people wanted to keep the company up, because it's inspiration in every step, and socks that tickle your soul. And with that, I was so touched. I was so moved. And I said, you know what? It's not over. My mind needs to rethink this process. And I go back to that because it's really our mind. We talk about mental health. Mental is the mind.
Yeah.
Whatever we think we are, whatever we do, whatever we have inside us is what comes out and translates. So me sitting in my bed, triggered by events from 5 years ago, was my mind, sending me back. And I had to make a conscious decision as to how I'm going to catapult forward and change that outcome. And it was tough, but I'm living proof that we can move together, we can band together, we can lock arms and pick each other up. And on a smaller scale, I think about the neighbors. I mean, if you step outside and you look at your neighbors, how many of them are elderly? And usually, when you think about that, I mean, let's spend the time and find out if they need help getting groceries to them. What is the need of? I think it's just basic compassion that we are forgetting. It's the simple things in life. And I think that's what really brought me to my knees and processing it and moving forward. Um, I also think about my nieces and their struggles, and going through what they see every day as friends in school to absolutely nothing. And mom and dad have to go to work, and they're in a room. you know they still need help, they still need the discipline, they still need connection.
Mm.
And watching my nieces go through that really kind of made me think of the bigger picture, and reaching out to all my girlfriends and finding out what the climate is in everybody's household. And I think that's the key right there, reaching out. I think and I do that. I make sure, and I encourage everybody out there to make sure that your core family is your chosen family. For me, it's yes, it's me and my mom and my brothers, but I also have a chosen family of a huge unity of friends, a community that I want to check in on, and I want to make sure that they are doing okay. Um, we have these masks on, and so now your voice is more important than ever.
Mm.
When you're walking into a store, when they've blocked this. So what do? You squint, you smile with your eyes, and you say hello. You're not going to get COVID from saying hello.
Mm. Mm.
And it's the simple things in life that we need to not forget, because that little old lady or old man who doesn't have family and is left there doesn't get the hellos, doesn't get, doesn't do all that.
Mm.
And we need to be cognizant and take care of our world And I say our world because our children suffer. So just saying, hi, sweetie, to the littlest girl, you look like a princess today. What is it going to hurt anybody? And I think we need to be more introspective with that and really realize that our words, our voice, our tone, our daily walk needs to be kinder and filled with love,
Mm,
even more so. I saw something on Facebook that said the word love is overused. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think it's used enough.
mm,
I don't think we give it enough,
mm,
you know. And I think the more that we can do that and share that little bit of wisdom, that tiny bit of smile, that little bit of smile can really change what's happening in the world. I don't think it's like this big, huge answer. I think it's all the little things that we do that, whatever your higher power is, has brought us to our knees to experience and to see. I truly believe that, LJ.
uh, and you're such, I mean, I'm loving sitting here and just having known you as your friend that you so walk this talk. I've watched you as such a, even when you're just as busy as anyone might think they could be with your own work and projects, you're still like reaching out to friends, always helping someone. I mean, I just have been in awe of witnessing how that's how you function and just like, wow, how does she do it? But I love that you're reminding us that that's part of what keeps you thriving and is even got you even so strong in your mental health is because you've got you're really practically living this what you're talking about, that you are someone who is practically looking at how you can and doing it, how can I help whoever I'm around and whoever I meet, and then those people that are my chosen family. I mean, yeah, it's thank you for reminding us of that to keep our focus on that is how we can help others, and is actually going to strengthen us right now too, and in our own healing and dealing. So it's beautiful, it's so important.
Yeah, it's even in my company motto, and I had to kind of reflect back on that. Why did I start this company? Why did I do any of this? It's that, every step, even if it's a tippy toe, it's every step. I mean, if you just think about it, forget about the socks, forget about anything. Every little step that we take can make a difference. And
Wow.
it is a changer. It is a changer. If you just turned around one person to smile, guess what? That could have been the moment where that person was thinking, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to end this. But because you spent the time for 1 second, 1 minute to just say hello, acknowledge, smile, and be kind, you have changed somebody's life, somebody's world. And knowing that is something that, yeah, I do want to talk about that. I do want to share that with people because it is the littlest things in our mental stability that can make the difference. And, I think about, I had a friend of mine call me and she says, Claudia, why don't you come over and do a paint class with me? And I said, okay. It was something I used to do in the past. And we talked about it. And I went over and I did this painting class with her and her family. And this was during COVID. And we talk about the need for wanting to be together and the need for connection, the need for any of that. So I decided to share it on Facebook and I shared it. I have been booked since September for painting classes because of that one experience. Because I gave my creative self, I don't believe that our gifts are meant just for us. I believe that our God-given gifts are meant to be shared.
Mm.
And in that moment, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm a conduit right now. Whatever, my hands, my painting, whatever you want to call it, is a conduit for people being able to connect on a different level. Nobody's a painter. Nobody's, why are people doing this? Because they want something to connect with.
Mm, mm,
And I found that, and I still find that profound because, I mean, just the things that people have asked me to do, I've been able to show up and do it. And it's just mind boggling to me. But, is it really mind boggling? At the end of the day, people just want to connect. People need connection, and people want to do it safely in our space. So they're not looking to go out into these big forums where there's people that they're not familiar with, and they're doing it in their own homes. They're doing it. And I've been taking the risk and going in, and, I temperature check, I do all these things, but at the same time, I just find it, I think the lessons are mine.
mm.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, Sherry, but the lessons are for me. And that lesson is, these moments, these gifts are to be shared.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and I love how you remind that it is in the little things. Because sometimes I think we can get overwhelmed thinking, well, I want to help the world or help others, but we think it needs to be through these big grand things. But you're reminding it's about the phone calls and the smiles and the seeing how we can help our neighbor and just really even just being present for who we encounter. And I love that. Just like starting our days, even thinking about who could we be reaching out to today? Who could we be helping? Right? It's such a different energy than just being lost in our own despair. So it's
I
really interesting.
Yeah, I had a whole group of people, and I said, and I could tell their energy was really low, and I said, okay, everybody in my office, and they're looking at me like, oh god, she's going crazy again. And I'm like, okay, you guys are going to walk up and down every office through this entire building, and I just want you to say hello, good morning with a smile. Give a hug if you need to. And we would do this, and they would come back laughing, telling me I'm crazy. But guess what? Their mood changed.
Wow. Oh, I love that. That's such a great story. Oh, wow. So amazing, Claudia. I knew 30 minutes with you would be like a blink of an eye, but I want to make sure I don't feel like I have anything specific I want to ask you. I just love how that flowed through. And you're such an amazing storyteller, so compelling that it was just like so amazing to be following you. But is there anything else that you want to say or add along these lines as we could see we're already coming towards the end of our time together? It goes so fast.
Well, I do want to say this to you. I feel that the work that you're doing, my dear, is very special. You're very genuine, and just having a platform like this to speak to anybody is a beautiful thing. And you're sharing your gifts.
Mm.
And I just kind of want to, flip the script here and just say thank you to you, because you are who you are. And I love that. And you make me smile every day. And I just want everybody to remember that. Be yourself.
Mm.
Be if you have mornings that you wake up and you just need to be in that bed and you need to cry for a minute, there is nothing wrong with that.
Mm.
I think you need to kind of be still and get that clarity out in order to find that next step.
Uh,
Sometimes we need to do that. So it's okay to sit in it for a little. It's okay. It's not everybody's thing to get up and power through right away. I couldn't power through right away,
yeah.
and it's okay. Everybody's going to be okay. And I mean, there's just so many places that can help. But, for starters, for everybody, just please don't forget to say hello, be kind, and let's start there. Send love, send your message through your actions,
Mm.
and we can change the world.
Mm. That's so good. And yeah, such clarity. Wow. I can feel that in my body. Yeah, that up leveled me. So I know that that's going to be powerful for other people. Well, okay. So I love to, and really what I love to do these interviews for is to share people like you that I'm inspired by with the world and your work. So if for people who might like to keep following you, what are your favorite ways, or maybe even book an art party or get some followers? What are some good ways to follow?
Well,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, it's brought three businesses to my life. So right now, being a product-based company,
Yeah.
my product is puchisocks.com, Puchie socks.com. And they're all socks that have motivational, inspirational inspiration on them. But through COVID, that took me to another realm where I opened my space up to teaching people about manufacturing and giving them tips on what to do with their own business. So I have been doing my coaching business, and that's under Claudia Guardado, at Claudia Guardado on Instagram. I'm mostly on Instagram.
Uh,
Yeah, and then the creative aspect is createwithme.la.
mm,
So, I mean, that's where I'm at, and I'm kind of building. I'm slower on some, but you know what? It's okay. I'm still moving in the right direction, and I'm blessed, and I'm so grateful for the path that I'm on and able to be here with you and to share my story. There's no shame in my game, guys, and our stories are all our stories. So God
mm,
bless you all.
gosh, well, your story was really powerful, and I appreciate you sharing how you did today. I felt it's perfect. So, oh, all right, all right. We'll call it to a close. We could go. I could go more with you, but we'll bring you back for next topics. But thank you so much, Claudia. I appreciate it. That's amazing,
Namaste,
and thank you
Missy.
for your presence on the planet.
Thank you. Okay. Take care.
And thank you all for being here. All right, namaste.